welcome for another episode.
So,
You know the crazy thing, Liz, that you have no idea what just happened. So because this is not my actual computer that I'm working on,
mhm.
just so happened that I have to kind of repopulate everything. So while the music's going on, it's like, please enter the name of it. I'm like, ah! But once again, welcome for another episode of Unfiltered Intentional.
Uh-huh.
We talk about all types of topics. So thank you for tuning in now, later, tomorrow, whenever you do. Just thank you. Thanks for joining. Can you see me now? Is my I'm good?
You're good. You're a little cut off at the chin, but yeah,
Okay, wait, is this okay now?
much better. Yes.
Okay. See what I'm saying? This is not my computer, guys. So I'm sorry if you're looking up my nose instead of looking at me. I blame it on my husband. I'm sorry.
Oh,
But
Lord.
the topic
Gosh.
the topic today, we're talking about immigration. And it's
Hmm.
so interesting because I wasn't going to have this conversation, but my co-host was like, we need to talk about it.
I mean, everybody else is talking about it.
So, before we get started and start having this great old conversation like we normally do, guys,
Mhm.
make sure you like and subscribe and share so we can have more and more conversations. You guys to suggest things. We can go from there, okay?
All
Ready
right.
to rock and roll? You got anything to say before we start, Liz?
No, just thank you guys as always for joining us this Sunday evening. We know that you're busy, you're trying to get the kids to bed and everything else, but you take some time to sit with us and have some adult conversation and I can never thank you guys enough. So from Unfiltered and Intentional, all
Yeah,
love.
yeah. So, just to start with, I have a list of questions that I want to ask you.
Me. Oh,
Um, and the reason why, because I know this conversation is kind of near and dear. I
hmm
have mixed feelings about it. I have mixed feelings about immigration.
okay.
I know you said that everyone else is talking about it,
Yes.
but I'm not.
Right.
I'm not talking about it only
Right.
because
hmm
I feel like it is what it is.
hmm
We keep dropping the ball each administration.
hmm
Um, when you go down each for every 4 years, it seems as if we take a step back. We're not progressing.
hmm
And one end, it may seem like, oh, DACA it was a great thing, and then another thing, like, oh man, they're throwing the kids in the camps, like, so it's like we go forward, we go back, and
Right.
it doesn't seem like we're getting any leadway. Um, Donald Trump, which is one of the presidents that are, well, his previous president, and now he wants to be president again. He's promising to deport every legal immigrant that's coming over. The goal is to deport uh, um, bad guys, basically, is what he's calling the rapists, the murderers, the druggies. But in all honesty, Project 2025 talks about everyone.
hmm
Deportation under the Alien Enemy Act of 1798.
hmm
A lot of people are asking him, how's he going to get this done? And my question for you is, how do you think it's going to get done? Like, do you think it's going to be just something that he's appealing to his audience, or he's actually stay out of here?
Well, it's funny because I'm actually going to piggyback off of where you kind of led into it with,
Hmm.
everybody's talking about it. Nobody I know is talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every time you turn on the news and they show their polling on what are Americans concerned about this election and what's the top of everybody's mind. Of course, you have the economy, which we've kind of touched base on, and then next is going to be, immigration. And then they get these people on like the Fox News network and and they're all the immigrants are invading and so on and so forth. I have yet to see anybody talk about how that's personally affecting them, like
Mm.
personally directly affecting them. So I'm right there with you actually in this whole everybody's talking about it on the news. Nobody I know is really talking about it. Nobody I know is um being directly affected by this invasion at the border.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we don't live in a border state, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, our governor has to get into everything. So he somehow rounded up people and put them on buses and sent them across the country, and then sent buses to Texas to go take people across the country, and
Mm-hmm.
just all kinds of craziness, right? It's so strange that they want to deport people or send them deeper into the country. Very strange. And I haven't really understood that theory much at all.
And he's sending them to liberal states kind of to prove a point.
Supposedly, yes. Supposedly send them to liberal states to prove a point. It's interesting because the liberal states are the states that provide all the welfare for all the red states, but that's a different show. That's a whole different show. Right?
Okay.
Push that off to the side for a moment. Now, how does he plan on doing that? See, I don't even think it's really about deporting immigrants and everything else. It's the dog whistle. It's him creating this them versus us thing. We're not a part of the us, right? And generally speaking, it kind of reminds you of like stop and frisk back in the day. If you remember those policies in New York,
yes.
Without cause, you just look suspicious.
Which he wants to bring that back, but that's another conversation. Go ahead.
Immigration is very, very similar. If you look like you're not American, they can kind of papers, please. Start asking you for papers. What does an American look like? I mean, I'm very curious. Who's not going to get stopped?
Okay.
Who is going to get stopped? How are you going to stop them? What are you going to ask them for? At all times, should you carry your passport, your birth certificate? Do I get a pass because I don't have an accent?
You make a good point when you talk about who's talking about it. How is this affecting people? Right. I have not personally seen immigration affect people in my neighborhood or people that I may know of, like, oh my God. But now you do hear they are taking the Black jobs away. And that's a conversation that's a juicy one.
That's a juicy one.
It's a juicy one. And I want to touch upon that because do you feel, because Black jobs, if you don't know already, and we talked about it a little bit before, are the low paying jobs, are the labor work ready jobs, sanitation and housekeeping and farm work and these type of things, low wage paying jobs. They're taking those jobs. Do you feel that the more immigrants come in, the more they're taking on to those jobs?
I feel that that's bullshit. And I think that it's...
Hey, okay. Tell me how you really feel. Okay.
Here's the thing is everybody, most of my inner circle, my people that I spend my weekends with and so on and so forth, are mostly Black from various backgrounds and so on, but mostly Black. Okay. And none of them work so-called Black jobs. They all work. Every friend I have works. But none of them work what are considered, Black jobs, right? None of us work. I don't work any of those sanitation, fast food, neither does my husband, neither do you, neither does your husband, so I think that's
stop you real quick let me stop you real quick because when you said your circle, my circle, we do have, our circle is in a certain type of demographic, meaning that we have a certain form of education, meaning that we have a certain form of work experience, meaning that we have certain skill sets and different things. So, but when you go into certain neighborhoods, you do see, I see if I go to a McDonald's, you'll see, a Spanish person, a Black person, you'll see those jobs mainly are filled with, minorities. If you see housekeeping is, from what I see, I don't know if you see when you're, hotels, is majority of them are minorities. I know this Walmart where the women that check the receipt to see if you're stealing, they don't speak a lick of English. You be right there and you be fanning your paper and they be like, "Un momento," and I'll be like, "Wait, what?" And manager, how do you see? Like they don't speak no English. I'm like, how did you even get a job? You don't even speak English. Like, so you don't see none of that?
I disagree. I can't explain that to you enough, right? First of all, for Mr. Mann to get up there and talk about these Black jobs, as if those are the jobs that Black people are qualified for, is insulting. I will never, ever, ever give that a pass. That's ridiculous. No more than, Black people can relate to him because he's a convicted felon too. That's another one of those things that should get under everybody's skin. Like if that's not under your skin, if you're accepting that as the new norm, or that's just him being him or whatever, that's just him being racist and appealing to the worst of you and or the worst of what he believes you to be, and you should avoid that, right? In terms of, it's ironic because the McDonald's that if I'm stopping for breakfast on my way to work,
Mhm.
religiously the person that hands me my bag is white.
Okay. Okay.
That's what happens, right? And actually, it's kind of the McDonald's I stop at would be considered more of a black side of town. So that's interesting, right? To say the least.
We're gonna go back to that. Let's just jump in the comments real quick. So we have a lot of welcomes coming in. You know how we do.
And so you got Cash saying good evening.
Hey,
Earl
hey,
hollering from the ATL.
hey, hey,
He said, I'm not talking about it. So
hey.
part of the circle, right? He goes, it's a dog whistle for sure. And then Toya said, God Sunday, evening
Hey,
blessings.
hey, hey.
Evening, Toya. And then Alistair said, good evening, ladies, loving your hairstyles. The whole conversation is a dog whistle from the GOP to attack the black vote, or to attract the black vote. Yes. And so it's no different than the GOP using black Americans as a dog whistle to white Americans on Fox regarding food stamps.
Okay, okay. I wanna go back to that. We're gonna parking lot that comment of taking black jobs because something that Cash always talks about, and I know he's listening, is this America, this life we live in, and maybe even in a mass scale, is a competition. We all compete against everybody. Everybody competes against everybody. You know, even if you have money, you don't have money, we're all competing. So of course, the more people that enter the race of that job or whatever we're competing for, it's like, but we're going to get back to that. We're going to parking lot that. I wanted to move on real quick about refugees. So for those who don't know, a refugee is somebody who is seeking asylum somewhere else because they are forced out of their country. Like we have nothing. Maybe there's no homes, there's no hospitals. They're just out there, and they're like, wait, we got to cross this border, guys, because we have nothing. Can you please help us? So the Ukrainians come over, as you guys probably know. They've been in this long war with Russia, and the Ukrainians come over, and they're like, "Oh my God, don't you guys see what Putin's doing? He's invading our lands. He's not doing this right. We want peace." They have the flag. Facebook posted the flags up. Hey, we support you guys, you Ukrainian. We're here for you. Initially, when the war was going on, you would really see right there, people were flooding the trains. They're holding on to the train. We're getting out of here. They're bombing our lands, our children. Refugees coming to America, especially Florida, from what we've seen on TV and in New York, we're welcoming. We're opening arms. We're holding hands. Oh my God, this is a terrible thing that you guys are facing. But I want to put that to the side real quick, because we also know that Haiti has been taken over by gang lords. We also know that the cartel in Mexico have been, I mean, this has been going on for years. Since I was a kid, I was hearing about the cartel. So we know about other impoverished areas where somebody is like disintegrating their livelihood. Why is it that we hug the Ukrainians that come over? We're giving them everything. Packages, they're on the news, and they hear the accents. Oh, thank you, America, we love you, oh my God, family to us. But when you have Pierre, Saint Juan, so and so, and Jose, whatever, it's like, oh my God, here they come.
What could the difference be, I wonder?
So we're putting it on race. We're putting it on race. So the media's fault. Is it the media's fault? Because in the same breath, we hear liberal TV stations talking about, oh my God, what is Trump talking about again? Immigration, no. But these are the same networks that are hugging the Ukrainian refugees, but not per se necessarily shining the light on the Mexican/Haitian immigrants that are coming over.
Right.
So
well, they
talking
shine a light on them. No, it's funny because they do shine a light on them. I did have a conversation with a kid, right? And I asked, when you think of an immigrant based off of, what you see on the news and everything else, what do they look like? What does an immigrant look like? Right? Not a kid, my kid, let me be more specific, right? And she said, like, they look, what did she say? Satanic. Right. And I said, well, why? And because of all the tattoos and the, she's picturing the gangs that they show on that they murdered the little girl someplace or whatever. And it's she told me that they're usually brown skin and that they usually have tattoos all over the place and so on and so forth. And I said, that's interesting. I said, do you know any immigrants?
Mm-hmm.
And she thought for a moment, and then eventually she came up with, oh yeah, my grandmother.
Mm.
True. Yes, my mother is a naturalized citizen, but she did immigrate here, a long, long time
Mm-hmm.
ago. Any other immigrants? And she really couldn't think of anything except maybe one classmate that she has that she thinks might be, from a Spanish country. And I said, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me go down the list. Right?
Okay.
And I literally went down the list. Actually, all of her grandparents are immigrants, all
Mm-hmm.
of them.
What did she say?
She kind of seemed taken aback because I guess she just kind of takes that for granted that we don't look like the people on TV, or my family doesn't look like, or her father's
Okay.
family doesn't look like those people. A lack of an accent, I suppose, drives
Okay.
it as well. Honest to goodness, most of my friends, my direct friends, are either first generation American or immigrants themselves. Like
Okay.
everybody I know, with the exception of probably you, like, and your husband, are all from different places, right? So I think it's so interesting that the narrative is so heavily driven on the bad hombres. You remember that?
Mm.
Um,
Oh yes.
those are the immigrants and so on, right? Somehow Ukrainians aren't immigrants when we see them. Before this whole Ukraine conflict, I don't know if you remember, late 90s, early 2000s, there was the Bosnians that got the same
Yes.
pass.
Yes.
They could come over, they had housing, they had all kinds of stuff they had allowances, everything, right? And that was great because we had to help them. They were in a war with, who was it?
I know you're talking about. Oh man, I wish Charles was listening.
Yes, it was
I know you're
Bosnia.
talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, it was the Serbs. It was the Serbs and the
Yes.
Bosnians.
Yes. Yes.
It took me a moment, right?
Yes.
And
In the '90s. Yes.
we took those people in with open arms and didn't look at them like these bad immigrants and so on and so forth. Um, I think that that's really odd. Right now, I do happen to know a lot of, let's call them, Caucasian people, right? And it's so interesting because even when I speak to them, a lot of them are first generation, maybe second generation Americans too. No one talks about that,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-mm.
my friends are Polish, Italian, Irish, and they are loud and proud about their heritage. It's not like they hide it. It's not like, they make their blue eyes and blonde hair pass because no one's asking. They're very, very proud about their heritage, as they should be, as we are, and
Mm-hmm.
so on. But somehow they escape this whole immigrants taking over the country trope that we keep hearing. And I find that the mind control there is baffling.
It's interesting while you're talking. The download that's coming to me is like, you know what?
Hmm.
It's funny because it's the dog whistle slash fear. Because if I have a small piece of the American pie, once again, that competition, and I'm holding on to it, man, this gas prices, they're coming for me. And then now I have some other people. What does that look like for my family? You're going to take from my pie. You're going to take from me. I can't give as much resources that I want to the next person because now I got to share with you. So the more people, once again, and I feel like that's what I keep hearing in reference to, oh, they're coming for you. They're coming for you. Because you look at it, like you said, there's so many, first generation here. There's so many. I mean, like you said, in your circle, I might be the only person who didn't, migrate from somebody, recently, So we're going to go back to what we were talking about, but we got some comments here.
Yeah, a ton of them. So Cash said that immigration comes in many forms and have many effects. There was a Disney employee suing because Disney laid off their American engineers and imported cheaper engineers from India under H-1B visas. So,
But and then so and that point there, I can understand why there is a level of anger because if you go on YouTube, if you go on
mhm,
TikTok, guys, and you type in immigration anger, there will be videos of people who are very upset because it is like, man, I'm working so hard. I've done so many achievements on whatever, whatever. And guess what? Because they want easy labor, because they can pay pennies on the dollar for whatever, whatever, I'm getting laid off or I'm not getting the same benefits. And I know we talked about that briefly one time, Liz, just in reference to you have some people, and of course, we'll never know anybody's pocket, but the rumor has it is that these immigrants come over and they're getting like the $15,000 worth of food stamps and they're getting, these housing vouchers and all types of different things where they're able to succeed. But wait a second, you're not giving out $15,000 of food stamps to the Chicago people that live there, but once again, and I know we had the conversation, like, how do you know it's true?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, they have a receipt on the website. So how do you know? But let's just play devil's advocate for 5 seconds. Let's just go on the dark side real quick and say it is true. It may not be $15,000 worth of food stamps, but let's just say for the family of 4, for Consuela, she got $3,000 worth of emergency food stamps, and she got a housing voucher or whatever the case may be. Don't you think that those people are feeling like kind of like a slap in the face? Like, damn, like we've been hungry. Like literally, you're only giving me $400 worth of food stamps, and I can't get any more because I don't qualify for any more. I do have a job because I don't want anybody thinking like, oh, here we go, food stamps, and you're not working. There are people who work and they get food stamps because they don't have this. They need that supplemental income. So I think they sit back and look. I'm working. Maybe I don't know, substitute teacher, whatever that may be. I'm working. I don't have enough money. I have a kid. I get food stamps, but you're only giving me $800 a month. Meanwhile, Consuelo gets now that $3,000 a month. Like, it's not fair. What's going on, government?
So, and I know you said you want to play devil's advocate and assume that it's true, right? Personally, I haven't seen that. What I can tell you personally, what I know from personal experience, right, is illegal immigrants that are here, that are like they're escaping and trying to make a better life for their families and so on and so forth, do not go to any government offices signing up for any government assistance. What they're trying to do is evade the government, right? Now, that's a whole different conversation, perhaps, right? But I'm telling you for a fact, right, that people that are genuinely here, the vast majority of immigrants that come here by way of, we're speaking specifically Central American immigrants that come through the border, they swim, they pay coyotes, they lose their lives, they finally make it, they go as deep underground as they can. They will work, they will bust their ass for very little. Yes, absolutely, right? They will clean a whole house like a crackhead for a very, very small amount, right? And things like that. What they won't do is go to the doctor when they're sick. They're not going to walk into a hospital. They would rather die than risk their family getting deported because they went to go look for medicine or tried to get any type of assistance, right? They try every home remedy. I'm being as literal as possible. Every home remedy to not ever have to step foot in the hospital where they have to provide any type of ID or anything. People try to avoid going places where they need ID, right? If they dare to drive, I promise you, they will not break a single law. They do not want to be pulled over by law enforcement, right? I know these things from personal experience. I know very, very, very many people in my family, in my circle that I've worked with that, you know, come from this level of angst. There's an anxiety to it. I lived in South Carolina, and to give you an idea of how nasty these people can be taken advantage of, they would work in construction, like construction jobs or like painters or tile. They would lay tile or, you know, things like that. And they would do these mega mansions in the low country of South Carolina, if you know where that region is, right?
Okay.
And about the last days of work. So they would always do these jobs. And let's just say that the contract was for $10,000.
Okay.
House for $10,000. They have X amount of workers. They'll get $5,000 up front, and then they'll get $5,000 upon completion. On the last day of the job, when only the little touch of paint needs to go, amazingly, ICE would show up, raid the place, and take all the workers. Who do you think called ICE? The same person that was supposed to give them that second half of the money, right? Every single day that it was largely men that went to work. Every single day that the men went to work, the women stayed at home waiting for the children and so on and so forth, not knowing if their husbands were coming back because that's how they would pick them up. The same people that were supposedly employing them were ripping them off and then calling immigration.
Okay.
I could give you another example also from South Carolina where there was a little girl. My job at the time was to translate. I was like the bilingual person for the whole county, right? And there was a little girl that was very, very sick. She was constantly just coughing and hacking up and like, you know, so of course the social worker has to get involved. She's missing a lot of days of school. She has a lot of fevers and so on. And I had to go with the social worker to the home because now there's like a investigation being done.
Of course, yeah.
I walked into the house. I happen to have asthma. I walked into the house, and honest to goodness, from the moment they opened the door, it's almost as if the oxygen was shut off. I could not breathe. It literally was like it just took my breath away, just could not breathe. Mind you, the house is spotless and I couldn't figure it out, but I have a job to do. And this is it's a sad story because it's going to, you know, it could be sad. She could be taken from her home and so on. It's a trailer. It's a really shitty, dilapidated, if you can imagine what a trailer in South Carolina really looks like. And I'm looking around the house, and again, everything, not one hair was out of place, and they did not know we were coming. It was a surprise visit. And then if you look up from the ceiling, there's mold coming through the walls, not on the walls, coming through the walls. This is a trailer from probably the 70s. I kind of got the social worker's attention kind of low key. The family didn't speak any English, so I could kind of, I was translating, but more than translating, if that makes sense to you. And I'm telling her, look up, look around, look at the corners, right? And there's mold everywhere. That's why the kid is sick. The mom is also sick. Can't breathe. Like everybody is sick, having like respiratory issues. And when I took it upon myself to call the landlord, way out of pocket here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I call the landlord and I'm going, hey, that unit, that trailer that they're in is not livable. Can they be switched? And he said that she has an effing problem that he'll call ICE so fast. And so her choice.
So if I hear you correctly, and of course, and I had a experience with somebody, a little kid got hit by a car, and I stopped to help the little boy, and I gotta call the police. Oh my God, you're hurt. He's like, please don't, because my parents are going to get sent back.
Yep.
So I've heard, like you said, they're living under the radar. They're not wanting to get caught. So getting subsidies and getting benefits, may be a far fetch. But something that we can validate and say that was true was in New York City. It dropped. The temperatures dropped, and they had to shut down. The mayor decided to shut down a school, a whole school, to bring the families in from the cold. Now, of course, it plays on your heartstrings in a general sense, because
facility. It was not a school. It was a recreational facility. Right.
But still, this is something that the community is invested in. My area for my kids. So they use that as a immediate 24-hour shelter type thing, just for this weather that's approaching. Do you feel that in those circumstances, because if you have a nice community right now, if something changes and it became a homeless shelter, that would drop your property value down. Do you think that there should have been a different type of setup? Because when you do it right flat in the middle of someone's neighborhood, that does, so we hear all the stories that immigrants go through, like, oh my God, it's so terrible, so terrible. But at the same time, you do have a right, government, to take care of your citizens first. So do you think, in reference to doing something like that, hey, we're going to shut this whole thing down, you guys freeze, come into this neighborhood, because mind you, the immigrants are not vetted. That's something we do know. The immigrants are not vetted. So you don't know who's coming in your neighborhood. It can be the family with the mold. It can be, whatever, but also it could be somebody who's gang, whatever. So does the government have that obligation to say, okay, maybe we shouldn't bring it in somebody's community. Maybe we should bring it out, maybe to the port, or bus them some, what do you think in that situation? Because it wasn't I hear what you're saying about the bad conditions that the immigrants are going through, but what about the government and their citizens? Like, are we just kind of like, oh, fuck off, people? You raise your taxes.
Don't make any mistake about it. There's clearly a broken immigration system, and something needs to be done. We cannot just have open borders and have everybody flooding in. We can't just have people not vetted. It's hard and it sucks. There is no community anywhere that's going to ever want a homeless shelter or a refugee shelter or a temporary immigrant shelter ever put up in their neighborhoods ever, right? And most of the time where it ends up in, if they have, if they want to put the least among us, if you would, any place, they usually put them in the hood, right? So that's kind of how that cookie crumbles. If it's a temporary situation because it's an emergency, no different than here in Florida, we have these hurricanes, and real quick they'll makeshift a school, a stadium, or anything into like hurricane relief. But nobody expected to still be that, 3 months from now. It's temporary relief until they can figure things out or get them to where they need to be. I mean, especially here in Florida, we more than anybody else should definitely understand that, right? It does suck. It was not a school. It was a jail, right? And I do get that the community's invested and so on and so forth, but it was a temporary situation. It was a temporary solution to allow to save people from dying. And yeah, that sucks. I'll also say about New York City, every winter they do everything they can to get homeless people off the street. American homeless people off the street. They do everything. They go as far as
they do not bring them into people's communities. I used to be homeless in New York City when I was younger, and they would not per se open up somebody's community where they have the HOA and this, that, and the third and say, hey, here's a makeshift shelter. What they do though is the office buildings, especially in the Bronx, turn into shelters, and you have to sleep on the floor. And this is from personal experience
And
from being
that's
home
not
for years.
fair to those people either. It's
No, it's not. It's not.
It's fair, right? But it's a
It's not. But I just don't. And
a long-term plan.
And we're going to go to the comments, but I just wanted to spin it like, yes, we still have to recognize that there is a valid immigration failure, and somebody has to be held accountable. And we keep kind of pushing that bucket like, not my fault. Okay, I'll get it next time. Oh, not my fault. And then you have
broken, and it needs to be fixed, and it's ridiculous, both for the red side and the blue side. This is stupid. To talk about this at this level. You know, to me, we should have had like a bigger fix already kind of put in, and we should be working out the details. The fact that we have nothing at all in place is completely insane.
We're going to go back to that. And like I said, it's a good conversation, but let's go to the comments because they're kind of flooding in.
So let's see. Alistair said it's no different than the GOP using. I think we read that one already.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, did we?
So, Earl said, talk about the immigrants flying over our border from India. From India, China, shit, everywhere. Europe.
They're actually, they're immigrants. Yeah, it's everywhere actually, and I know that the media has kind of, especially conservative media, has put a spotlight on males that are coming over, just the male, you know, no family, no nothing, but they're just kind of coming in, and I guess trying to put that as like there's something to be worried about. But yes, they have made that a topic.
So he said it's no different than wet foot, dry foot. So for people that don't know, in Florida, if a Cuban makes it to Florida and they get their foot on land, they don't get deported. They kind of almost instantly get something like a permanent residency card. If they get caught in the water, they get sent back. If a Haitian gets caught at any point, they don't get the same.
And that's what I'm going to skip. And that's what I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back to this comment here. What is this comment right here about the color? That colors, and definitely that's true.
Cubans, though, I will say it goes a little bit deeper than that. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and Jews, and I mean this as a good thing, not to generalize people, but they understood the assignment, right? Indian people too, right? They got here, they run for office, they get positions of power, and they use it to the max, right? For some reason, the rest of us can't seem to figure that out.
We're going to go to that because that was a good conversation that was talked about. You know, one time we had a very, very deep conversation. So why is it that immigrants can come over here, take $1, make it into $100,000, and then African American people who've been sitting on the block for about 1,000 years, and they still got the same $0 in their pocket? But I didn't say that, so I don't want y'all commenting like, what? I just said that was the question that we was talking about, like, why? Well, okay, let's go on.
There was a discussion about it. It's a whole different show here. So let's see. Actually, now you have to go back. We got Alistair said it's such a weird talking point for Trump and Vance, considering they're married to immigrants. I will say that J.D. Vance's wife is a first-generation American, if I'm not mistaken. She was born in California. Her parents were not, right? And she does speak more than English because the
and you know what? And even Melania, they've mentioned in reference to immigration, they were talking about, well, we want legal immigration. And I wish I was the person that was going to interview her at that time, because it's like, wait a second. So the legal process can take years to go through. Years to go through. Miss First Lady, your process was less than 8 months.
Yep.
So how did you skip that line? So if I had been waiting, and I would love to ask that question. I've never heard anyone answer that question. So you want legal immigration, right? Now I'll tell you this. to legally come to the U.S., you need between $1,200 to $8,000 for, and each immigration program is a little bit different, so it might vary. But that's even if you had that money. Then you have to apply, and then you have to study, and you have to this and this and this. It's a whole process. But no one has ever asked, wait a second, if we really, really value legal immigration, how is it that some people get to skip that line and others don't? I've been waiting for it.
I know for her, the visa that she allegedly came on was because she had special talents and abilities.
We've seen those abilities.
Yes, she was a nude model, bluntly. Like she was and she was very beautiful, and that was her talent. That was the whole thing.
Okay.
So
Well,
here's another bit of food for thought, if you would. Of Donald Trump's 5 children with 3 different women, 4 of them are first generation American, because his wife before that wasn't American either. The only one that's born American and then had an American child is Tiffany. You know, she's Marla Maples' daughter. But what was her name? Ivana was not from here. Melania was not from here, and I forget who the other one is because, you know, who cares? All right. And then so Elsa says, then move on. Every employer is looking for cheap labor. Automation, robotics, the world of technology keeps evolving. AI is the new craze. What we're going to give up and stop applying ourselves, adjust.
And I think that's the comment that he's replying to in reference to Cash about how Disney said, wait a second, we're firing these engineers over here and we're going across overseas to get that. I can tell you this, and unfortunately, it's a reality. And the reality is that when companies hire overseas, you have to look at the statistics. So let's just say, because DEI is out, right? And some people hate it, some people love it, but it's a thing now, right? So you'll have companies like a Wells Fargo say, hey, we want to be inclusive. We want you guys. We want people. And we want to embrace Black people and say that we're here for them, you know, this business. But you look at the statistics, they will hire Nigerians, Haitians, these immigrants, and they will look past African American, which I find that really, really peculiar, because if we both have the same qualification, why is it that and I'll even give it another thing that we could all look at, because of course what I'm talking about, you have to do a little bit of digging. Let's talk about the acting, the Hollywood scene. When you see Black actors acting, majority of them, I would say, are from overseas. A majority of Black actors working in these movies that you're seeing are from England and from they're Nigerian and this, that, and the third. And the question that some people have, well, why are you not hiring African American actors? And they say, well, it's because they're from the theater. And so this is the reason why. And there has an actual, I mean, you guys can Google it and search. There's literally a conversation to be had, because a lot of African American people, like, we are being looked over. Companies are just using that, I guess. Well, we hiring Black people. Now you care where the person came from. Like, Black is Black, right? But once again, this is an argument amongst the community. I'm just saying, this is an argument.
It's a big argument, right? I mean, because here's the thing. I would be very curious as to what the statistic is on that, because every Black actor I could think of, like off the top of my head, is your Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, Tyler Perry. You know, they're American Black as far as I know, right? Of course, you got your Idris Elba, and you've got a few others or whatever.
Harriet Tubman, the movie about Harriet Tubman, I forget the name. I think it might have been Tubman or Harriet. That was the name of the movie. She is not American. She's actually playing a new movie, Wicked. The guy that played in Get Out, he's from overseas, from Nigerian. There's a whole list of people that you would think. Oh God, I wish I had the list in front of me. There's a list of.
I consider that a tribute. I think that's a great thing that we diversify in that way. I will say this, right? If you have, I can't subscribe to this notion that anybody is coming here to take anything that belongs to me. First of all, what belongs to me is going to be mine, right? And I mean, and bar me, right? Like that is what it's going to be, right? But here's the fact of the matter, and we can say, I think we can both say this. We have adult children, right? And if I go to the I went to the doctor yesterday, right? And I can't be mad that Dr. Patel was the one that had to attend to my child instead of, Dr. Jahim, because at the end of the day, our children aren't doing it. They're not doing it, right? In the meantime, those children that come over from India, from Nigeria, from wherever else, they're putting the work in while our kids are on YouTube. And I mean, I'm not saying that to call out my kids or your kids.
You're generalized, yes.
In general, right? Like if you really look at it, whether you want to go with this whole, is the Black American person being held down or whatever compared to everybody else has access to the same shit. They're just not getting distracted the way the way our kids are. Or the way we let our children get distracted. So, I mean, somebody has to do it. And I'm glad Dr. Patel was there when Dr. Rahim was there.
You know what? I had that conversation. I think, Cash, if you're listening, he blames Disney, because if you ever watch a Disney movie, Disney's always talking about you can live your dreams. Whatever you dream, you can do it. And it's kind of like the parent has this rule, like, I want you to live this lifestyle. Like, no, I want to be free, Mom. I want to be free, Dad. And then they go off and, and set sail and have a happy ever ending. But it's funny because I've noticed in other cultures, it's kind of like their work structure is different. Family first, religion, whatever that spirituality is, and their work ethic, because they know how hard it is back there. I mean, there was always a running joke, and when I was growing up, that Jamaicans, Haitians, people from the islands, they have 3 jobs. They got 3 jobs. They a cab driver. They a cook. They are this. They that. While we're like, oh, we're not doing none of that. I'm not breaking my nails.
I want choices. I want freedom. And by the way, that's not just a Black thing. That's an American thing, because white Americans do the same thing. And then after a certain generation, you got, the rest of us, we get Americanized, and our kids too. I just want her to grow up to be happy. Yeah, when I was growing up, it was like, if you weren't going to be a lawyer or a doctor, you were going to be a failure. And those were the only 3 choices.
Let's go to the comments. Let's go to the comments, though. Yeah.
Right. So Toya said, I can attest to that, Liz. I live it. Her comment actually continued to, or they'll stop payment on the check and complain about the most minute issue to avoid paying them. It's reprehensible. She's talking about the whole way that they rip off the immigrants and threaten to deport them if they want to complain about it. Z chimed in. He said, good evening. Hi, Z.
Hey.
And there's Humble Lion. What up, stranger? We haven't seen you in a while. You said everyone's immigrants except us, but nobody's ready for that conversation.
I'm ready for the conversation. You know what's interesting? I met somebody one time. Actually, you was there for one of my birthday party. My friend had a guy from Africa, and he was talking about all the wonderful things why we should invest our money in Africa. And one thing that stood out in that conversation that he had was, do not believe in the media. The media will have you thinking that don't go overseas, don't invest your money, don't. The property, the land, the milk and the honey is all here in America, where you can get so much more elsewhere. And, I have noticed that the propaganda, the media kinds of puts a shunt on that. You do have people who travel and they get out of that and say, you know what, I'm going to go overseas and what's going on. Not even per se that you're migrating over there, but just to even get out your bubble. Like, we're so Americanized, right? Like, this is it. There's no other country. There's no other way. This is it. How about we take our happy ass somewhere else? I'm ready to travel. Let's see what's going on out there.
Well, it's interesting because I think when he mentioned that, everyone's an immigrant except for us, immigrants voluntarily come here. They up and leave their countries to come here. I think that people of African descent, they did not up and decide one day that, you know what, let's go check out the furniture over there, right? It was not optional, and therefore that's not immigration, that's kidnapping. And Humble Lion, you could chime in and let me know if I did not interpret that correctly. But yeah, and there is this, you do kind of have to ask yourself, if it's such a shitty country that treats everybody so badly and it's so unfair and everything else, why is it that other people in other countries will literally sacrifice themselves, sacrifice their kids, sacrifice whatever they have, their entire life and everything that they've known to get here? And we stay here and just complain, because we could leave too. If it's that terrible,
You know what I think? Because so when you have a person who's like you said, they're sending their kids over, they want a better life, and the whole nine. I noticed that that's a certain demographic bracket. And they're like, and those countries have a lot of laws, and they don't have a lot of access. So there's a lot of loopholes in the American law system. If you live here, let's just say you were just born and raised here and you're from the hood or for the barrio or whatever that case may be, you know how to get through. You know how to do a document, something like this, or somebody who did something like this, and you know how to make it work. So then you can flip your money, make it right. And then now all of a sudden you're like, look at me now. Woo, out of 20 years of struggle, here I am, and I'm doing it big. And these other countries, they don't have that access. It's not as accessible for them to flip docs and this and this. And maybe the country don't even have it. I mean, take Haiti. Haiti, as rich as the country is, it's not very easy to do stuff over there. You can't just walk into your console or your system and be like, hey, I'd like to apply for so and so. You're gonna have to go through some loopholes. So I definitely do understand. I mean, you're looking for the land of milk and honey and opportunities. But I just wish the opportunities were granted for everybody,
I mean, I'll go a step further, and I know we're getting close to the end of this hour, if you would. But it's so interesting that they talk about how the immigrants are taking over the country and that they want to change America from what it is and so on and so forth. The most powerful person running around on the Trump campaign right now is Elon Musk. How American is he? Right? Those are the immigrants that are trying to take over the country, and why, and what values does he bring to the table that he's trying to impose on the American people and the American way? It's strange that you have this person that is not from this country coming and challenging our democracy, our system, and the way that we vote and everything else, and nobody is blinking an eye about it. But here they are still arguing that immigrants are coming here to kind of fuck shit up. That we haven't, right? And so, I mean, my parents came and did everything they could. I mean, literally listen to me speak. Do I sound like I came from immigrant parents, right? And so, because I know growing up, my mother wouldn't even allow me to speak Spanish outside of the house at all. Like if she heard me speaking Spanish outside of the house, it was an issue because we're in America. We do like the Americans do. Right?
But you know what? And it's crazy. It's really crazy. And I'm glad you mentioned that part. That last little part there triggered something in me because we, for some reason, have to be able to be systemized to the system here. If I went over to Asia and I wanted to go to the markets, I better get on a translator somewhere, put it in like, hello, what did you say? Me hung out and do something here so that the translator would work because I am not going to come there and say, hey, can you change these signs into some American stuff? Because I can't read the English and like you. It's really interesting how people really, really, really want that indoctrination. And the indoctrination of America, unfortunately, has a lot of tainted history within it. So it's funny to hear you say that your mom was like, yo, do not speak Spanish outside this house. Like, I will take this chancleta and hit you upside your damn head. You're like, what?
I couldn't think of the word right now.
Yeah. That's really, really sad. That's really, really sad. Go ahead.
And so, since Laura said, what a great subject, maybe consider having a continuation to this show, a part 2. There's just so much to dig into concerning this subject.
You know what? And it's interesting because it's also kind of ties in. Like it's funny because we were talking about the show kind of like, let's hit it kind of heavy now that we got an election. And I looked up like the election's about to be here in
days. We got 3 weeks.
I wonder, and I would love, because I know there are a lot of Republican people that I know who watch the show, maybe not live, but afterwards. Do you feel, the question is put out there, do you feel if Kamala does lose the race, it's because of the immigration? Is that one of the main reasons why? Because as you can clearly see, with the Biden administration, Kamala being vice president, that was her baby, right? And they're flooding in, they're doing these laws, and it's getting out of control. Not until the very end did they do a new law that they wanted both sides can agree on, and they wanted to pass it, but we already knew Donald Trump stepped in and said, wait, hold it, don't sign it, because this could be an actual good, leverage for the election.
That's actually another fallacy of the media or whatever. One of the first thoughts that they introduced when they took the White House was to try to address the immigration problem. And of course, Democrats have this issue: if we can't get everything we want, we get nothing at all, right? And then when the midterms hit, then the Republicans kind of came along, and they definitely weren't going to play ball. And this goes right back to, regardless of red or blue. I mean, Donald Trump didn't do it, and he was all red. He had the whole everything right at his disposal. Instead, he got really worried about being all up in your womb and not necessarily on the border. So he didn't do anything either. I mean, and then the guy before that, I guess he did the DREAM Act with DACA and everything else. And I guess that's the closest anybody got to trying to do anything. And honestly, that stemmed the flow, made the process just a little bit. I guess he did something, but I wouldn't call that really much of anything if you think about it, because those same people are still, even now, still hanging in the balance. So no one's on this since, I think, Ronald Reagan, really.
Questions to the audience, if you'd like to chime in. Is immigration a topic where you're like, you know what, this is something that is on my agenda, and this has a lot to do with how I'm voting? You know, I do know, just because something, because you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, like, well, I'm not really talking about it. Who are these, who's immigration affecting like that? A lot of people don't talk about things. Sometimes they keep it to themselves, but I'm just very curious, if you are going to vote, is this one of the factors? Like,
I hope you're going to vote. Please vote.
That's a whole nother topic.
Everybody, please vote.
That's a whole other topic.
All right. And so Cash said, I think there's a difference between the argument of immigration has no impact on anyone's life versus immigration impacts current citizens. But I think there are ABC benefits, and we should aim for X number of new residents per year. That's fair. That is a worthy conversation to have. They got Humble Lion chiming in. He goes, not all of us come from Africa. That's the narrative of the media. Historians push. We are native here and built America, and we want ours, period.
And we need to have that conversation, Humble Lion. Tell me the time when you can log back on and have this conversation, because I know, reparations and all that is still a very hot topic that still needs to be talked about. I know that conversation can keep going on and on and on. But at the end of the day, Gary Newsom had something to do with, in California, shutting that whole topic down and entitlement, or just even looking at the study, and we want to know from Kamala. People have asked Kamala, like, hey, how do you feel about this? What's going on? So I'm very interested if these topics will affect your voting. If you are going to vote, will it affect, like, what? They don't care about us. I'm not going to vote.
I'll also say that, of course, you have your Native Americans, not to leave Native Americans out of the conversation. Funny enough, you know how they got here? They immigrated too, right? So they came over, if I'm not mistaken, the Bering Strait from up from Asia through the whole Alaska on down. And if you look all the way down to the bottom of South America, that's the migration channel there. Everybody immigrated here at some point from someplace, right? It's just a matter of when are we cutting off that timeline, because it's so interesting. Again, obviously what happened to the Native Americans, what happened to the Africans is different than the rest of the stories that could be told. But once the Italians got here, they wanted to close the door behind them. Once the Irish got here, we're here now, we can close the door behind them. Don't let those next people in. The Jews came, close the door behind them. The Mexicans come, close the door before they get in.
Well,
right?
I believe the reason why I strongly believe the reason why they want to close that door that you're talking about is because if we get too many, and I'm not talking about the bad guys. So we're not talking about the bad ones, but if we get too many immigrants in, it's going to change the fabric of our culture. Meaning that, because I remember, I live in the suburban neighborhood, and you go to, let's just take July 4th. So they're shooting off the fireworks. Everybody's like, I'm proud to be an American. And all of a sudden you're like, weapon, and they're doing the dance. They're like, wait a second. So you have that conflict, and I see it a lot. Like, wait a second. We should be grilling the hot dogs and the hamburgers. And now we got the rice and the.
Possibly disagree with you more.
No, I'm saying this is what I've seen. No. This is what I've seen. I've seen it.
I agree that you've seen it, right? But here's the thing: is that's what makes America America.
Oh, yeah. Diversity.
That's what does it. As a matter of fact, I think Alistair put in a comment there that America is great due to all the immigrants in this country. It's what separates us and makes us the beacon and hope worldwide, right? So here's the thing. If you decided tonight that you wanted to go out for dinner, how would the conversation go? Where are we going? We have Italian, Mexican, Chinese. That's literally what it's like to be in America, right? We have no national language. We have no national religion. Those are the things that make us what we are, right? We all believe different things and we come from different backgrounds and we come together and we make it work. That is kind of the point. So yeah, it's nice that on the 4th of July, you can hear all these different celebrations of everything and everybody that it takes to make America what it is. The Statue of Liberty and the history of the Statue of Liberty is major. Like, it's huge. I mean, again, not to take away from the guy. I think he's wicked as hell, right? But Elon Musk, he's reinventing how we even look at cars. Steve Jobs, another person that wasn't from here,
when I said that I see it, I'm not saying personally that I am saying, oh my God, I'm over here celebrating the 4th of July and now we got, some type of music over here. That's the opposite. Yes, definitely. Me coming from New York, that's all I know, are immigrants. Actually, before I even knew what the word immigrant is, I just thought everybody was from America. But, you had so many different nationalities and cultures. This one neighborhood has this with this type of food and this one this. And I grew up around people from the islands, being from uptown New York. That's all you ever saw was people. Everybody was from the islands, or Black or associated with that culture. But I'm just saying, back to that dog whistle, I do see it. I do see it, people frowning or people looking like, like the fabric of America, or what America stands for in reference to their eyesight, is changing. So that's what I'm referring to in regards to that.
Because the same people turning their nose up at it are what are the reason that it's changing, right? When you start challenging what if everybody should vote and if your vote should count, or those are the things that make America America. If you start turning your nose up because there's these other cultures here, it's what makes us us, right? Doing that, they claim to be patriots. They actually hate America and everything that built America and everything that America stands for. And there's literally no other way to look at it.
I think they just want to push white supremacy, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That's really all it is, right? It's white supremacy.
Conversation.
It's not an American thing, which is why they'll accept white people from anywhere, white Europeans, white people from Central America, South America. If you're white passing, you're passable. If you're not, you're not, right? Immigrants are fine as long as they can pass the brown paper bag test. Because when Melania talks, I can't understand her. Like, that's an immigrant for you. You know what I mean? That sounds crazy to me. I know Alistair mentioned that those same Mexicans are celebrating the 4th of July, and I'll come back to Humble Lion's comment. But it's funny though, because we get kind of annoyed when Mexicans are celebrating the 4th of July, but we love us some Cinco de Mayo and some Taco Tuesdays.
They just love the food. Go ahead.
Okay. So Humble Lion said that everyone that came to America can go back to their homeland, but us. What tribe or country in Africa are you from? It's all Ghana or Kenya.
I know, because I like to do research, and I am from Cameroon, which is Central Africa. My people, many generations came, and this is on my daddy's side though, and I do have white blood in me from the UK, and they were trade workers or trade, they did trade. And they came to America. Now, I can tell you that on my mom's side, we are freemen. And my ancestry on my mama's side, we killed our slave master. We didn't play those games. And then we went west, and then we adopted that last name West. So shout out to my people on my mama's side who didn't play those games and took back their culture. But where are you from, Humble Lion, and your ancestry? All right.
Definitely. So Candace said, I'm an immigrant, and that's the Trinidad and Tobago flag. She worked 2 jobs and was on food stamps while in school getting her doctorate degree. Okay. I'm also grossly underpaid compared to my counterparts, along with the student loan debt.
Okay, so, doctorates, I see you. I hope you graduated or in the process of doing so.
Do your thing, girl. So Candace said, I also sympathize with Black Americans due to longstanding systematic oppression. It's important that we focus these issues where it matters, political, local, and federal, and not on each other. Yo, two times. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then Candace went on to say, our indigenous people also need to be heard in all of this. So much to unpack.
Oh my God. You know what's interesting? They do not have enough representation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very unfortunate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you say the word unpack, that needs to have the rabbit ears with the underline underneath it with the capital
So much to
U.
unpack. Yeah.
And I want to do some research on that to finally, maybe get somebody of native ancestry, on the show to talk about that, because that is a whole conversation that is just lost
Mm-hmm.
in the sauce. We do focus so much on ourselves, right? And we forget about Native Americans and how much they have brought to the table as well.
So she laughed. She said I had to do my comment in 3 parts. So she had a lot she needed to get up off her chest real quick. So Trump said, Alistair said Trump can't understand Melania either. So, good thing she don't have much to say. So Humble Lion said that 23andMe and Ancestry DNA are scams. I understand people want to know, but that is not the intent with that.
Well, you make a good point. There has been a lot of controversy in reference to scams of DNA.
Yep.
People who want to know, they actually have DNA programs that just are based on African descent, and you can just go from there. And that's another conversation to be had. With that being said, I'll say this, because I ran into people who say, I'm not taking one of those. I'm not doing that. And I would always look at people who did that, because I'm like, well, wait a second. When you open your mouth, which I believe everyone has, possibly went to the dentist, and maybe you had a baby. Maybe you've seen the doctor once in your life. You do know that your DNA is collected. You do know that DNA, majority of times, is not just going into that little red box that closes real tight, and then you never see those needles and things again. What do you think they do? There is a lot of history, since we're talking about history, and I love that topic, that talks about how African American people in particular have been used to formulate experimental drugs, bio weapons, all types of stuff. So it's interesting when you talk about their scams. I would say that I'm not an actual scientist to say, yes, this actual company is. So I agree. Like I said, you hear about those different things, like, yeah, they mash it all up. But I can say, for anybody that has ever went to the doctor, believe me, that DNA is going
Oh
somewhere.
yeah, your baby's umbilical cord is somewhere. It did not.
That placenta is going somewhere.
But and again here to Humble Lion's point, I personally haven't done the whole ancestry DNA thing, and mostly because how do they know, right? It's not like my great grandmother was on anybody's database. I probably never ever went to a doctor ever, because it's just different. Where my family's from Nicaragua, and they don't have hospitals and stuff set up the way that we do. Most of the time, they don't have running water to this day. Like, this is 2024. So where do you think that they got all this amazing information from? I don't know.
Well, just to answer that question, I know it was a rhetorical question.
I know how that works, but at the end of the day, they can actually trace. They give you this whole long history of, when your great 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 grandfather on the third side is this person that's related to that person, and I mean, I kind of sort of call bullshit on that to some extent, right? The reason that they did not allow slaves to learn how to read and write is because the intent was to erase the history. All of a sudden, we can recreate that history. There's something to that. It's also why they're banning books now. We just got way off the whole immigration issue. But
it all ties in. It all ties in. We love you, Humble.
Because everyone comes out of a nation. Why do you think our nationality kept changing in this country? Black, colored, Negro, etc.
That was a topic that we had a month or two ago.
We need a part 2 to that one. Right? They kept hiding our nationality because they know who we are, and most don't.
Yeah. I'll say this to what you're saying. So at the end of the day, there are deep thinkers like yourself, like the next person, like Alistair that said that part. Just different people who will do the research They will do the research. We got Candace who's getting her doctorate. They're doing the research. They're out there right there. They know who they are. They know the lineage. They know the history. And this is not just talking about something that they can see on a paper that some guy wrote. It can even be spiritually or whatever you got going on. But they're doing some type of work to know thyself, right? And with that being said, you know, it's unfortunate that these topics are even topics to be had, but they are, and they affect us. I always say that even though we should be looking at these bigger topics like you're talking about, Humble Lion, we still got to go in the weeds and deal with this bullshit.
Yeah, we do.
Because at the end of the day, if I'm in the store and I'm speaking Spanglish, because that's all I speak is Spanglish, I may run into a person. I have ran into a person like, hey, and what country? And I'm looking like, what? Motherfucking America. Like, this is where I'm from. Like, and you're having these conversations and you're seeing people. It seems like conservatives, unfortunately, to all my conservatives out there, it seems like they're driven off of fear.
Yep.
And when you're driven off of fear, you can make irrational decisions.
You're easy to control too.
I think this country, unfortunately, was built off of fear. Not just our ancestors who are actually physically making the country, but the ones who are instilling the laws, the ones who are saying, hey, we're going to put these things in play. The reason why we're doing this and this and this, because you know what? I want what you have. I want to make sure that my shit is secure. I want to make sure that my kids' stuff is secure. And I don't want you. I don't want to compete with you.
Well, half the time, it's not even that they want what you have. They just don't want you to have it.
I think it's both.
Sometimes it is they want what you have, but sometimes they, you know what, they can't get it. They just don't want you to have it. It goes right back to, right. And again, that was not it's not a uniquely Black thing. It's a uniquely American thing, honestly, right? They know that their kids aren't about shit. They're not going to be doctors and lawyers and engineers or anything, but don't let the next guy do it either. And where would we be in 20 years if we just stopped that? Because Americans are not doing it, of any race, of any type. There's a generation of Americans that is largely lost. It's not all of them, but this generation is kind of fucked, right? And it was intentional. It's funny because all that stuff that comes from China or your social media or your video games and everything else was meant to distract us, but they don't allow their kids to play. And it worked. It works. It is working. This has been a long-standing thing. It started in about the late 80s, early 90s, and they've introduced it. We cannot get it out of our systems at this point. But their kids are not allowed to play it, and their kids are the engineers and the everything else, right? They just don't want you to have it. They're not going to do it. Little, you know, Billy Joe on his couch with his bear, he is not about to get up and go do that job that he thinks is a Black job that this Mexican took. He does not care about it for himself. He ain't going to do it. Right? He just doesn't want you to do it. So let's see. We got some comments rolling in.
We got Candace. Read the Candace one first, real quick.
She said most people will check their dog's DNA before they check their own.
That's very true. They love little rough.
It is a thing. All right. And so Alistair said that's why Trump speaks the way that he does. It's all fear driven. They're going to eat your damn pets. Yes, when all else fails, they're going to eat the dogs, eat the cats, you know, whatever. Right?
You know they made a song from that, like "Eat the Dog."
That was hilarious.
And my daughter be dancing like "Eat the cat." I'm like, don't say "eat the cat," say "eat the dog."
I'm so done. So, and then Humble Lion said, but back on subject, I see them trying to use immigrants against us and make us angry, but we got to keep the heat on the puppeteers.
Very, very, very accurate.
Yes, right? Then he said, if I can't have it, no one can. That's the attitude that they're taking about it. Things that I do want to kind of point out before we kind of wrap up here. Take a look at the policies that they intend to put into effect, right? And so they want to end birthright citizenship. I understand the whole anchor baby thing, but birthright citizenship, if you're born in this country, what country should you be deported to, right? Ask yourself that question, right? Ask that about, most of my friends, again, are immigrants. Where would their kids go? To these countries that they have no connection to whatsoever? That sounds weird to me. The next thing that they want to do, they want to mass deport everybody. Good luck with that, right? They want to be able to stop you and ask you for papers, because if you can't prove that you're an American, you can go with the rest of them. Ask yourself where that's coming from, what energy is fueling that. They want to they want to be able to denaturalize people. So for anybody that doesn't know, if you're born in a different country, you can go through the process. It takes a very, very long time, but you become a naturalized citizen. They have to study for a test, they have to pass a
Yep.
test in the language, they have to swear an oath to the country, so on and so forth, and you get naturalized, and now you're an American citizen. You are an American citizen, as American as everybody else is, right? They want to be able to take that away, right? Kind of just because. Those things are very, very dangerous things, really dangerous things. And when they start rounding people up and claiming that they're deporting them, that sounds a lot like how concentration camps were started in the past. So be really, really careful about that when people to your left and people to your right start disappearing. You know how they say, first they came for so-and-so and I didn't say anything, then they came for so-and-so, I didn't say anything, and then they came for me. You know what I mean? At that point, it's and you're shit out of luck. Pay attention to what's going on, get involved, and make sure that you vote.
Let's go to these last two comments before we wrap that up.
Mm-hmm. And so Candace said, fear gets people to support things they don't understand. True.
Very true.
Right. And then Cash said it was Asians that sued to put the final bullet in affirmative action, hurting Black kids who were trying to be doctors and engineers.
Once again, and with that note there, I just wanted to say, you know, there is a fight to be fought, you know. It's interesting. The statement says it was Asians that sued to put the final bullet in affirmative action, hurting Black kids who were trying to be doctors and engineers, you know, and that's why I personally feel voting is very important. I'm not here to say who you should vote for, you know, that's a whole different conversation. But if you want some type of change, and even if you're not necessarily voting, get involved in your community. Right. A lot of people will just sit down and just let shit happen. Like shit is just happening. And they're like, wait, now what happened? I've had people say, I don't watch the news and you're my news. So can you tell me what's going on, Key? I'd be like, wait, what? So if it was all going down, you would depend on me. I don't be checking out. What in the world is this? I do know that I watch the news on every, not even your conservative. I'm watching underground news. I'm watching international news. I stay on the news hotline. But with that being said, you know, thanks once again, guys, for tuning in. What a great topic. As always, you know, getting the blood going because it can just keep lasting and lasting. I know that we have an election coming soon, and we're going to be talking more about that. I think the next one we were going to talk about, Liz, is about voting. Was it about why we should vote? Because I am so tired of people saying, I'm not voting.
I'm
I don't know who you should vote for, but how are you not going to vote and then sit and complain? I do not understand people who complain about shit and do nothing about it. That's what I don't like. Don't complain about something and do nothing about it. Oh, I can't stand it when. Well, what the fuck you doing?
What are you doing? Do something.
Yeah, but that's another topic to stay tuned. Yes, and get unfiltered. But it's always good. Tune in next time when we talk about it. We should be doing this as in this Sunday or the Sunday coming up. I don't have my calendar, but we're going to get it together. But definitely the topic is about voting. Just let you know it's about voting to put it out there. Love you guys. Bye.